Sorry about that, folks. Took me a couple extra minutes here to get going. Must be the cold, huh? How are y'all faring? Hopefully, you're staying warm. And the temperature did creep up a little bit today. Did you notice? I think we were at 0 or maybe even a degree or 2 above. I've got plenty of layers on tonight. That's the key. I did go for a little walk. I went up and got the Park District van to do my appointed rounds today. And out of the wind and in the sun, it wasn't awful. We're going to take a look at some pictures of how some of the local wildlife, particularly the birds, are coping in just a minute. But first, let's see. I had a couple things here I wanted to share with you. One, I found this hat. It was actually a gift from a couple of years ago, but I wanted to mention it to you because it's really handy whether you're a dog person like me, if you've got furry roommates that like to or need to go out for walks and you need to pick up after them. But, you know, the leash, the bags and everything. You know, some people wear headlamps. This is actually something now I'm going to see. There it is. So there's my brother gave this to me. He found it at Eddie Bauer. It's whoa, look at that. It's got, and it's adjustable too. You can go, you know, 1 light, 2 lights, or 3 lights. Oops, 1 light. Yeah. All right, I don't want to blast you anymore, but it's pretty cool, somewhat fashionable as well. And it's been something I've been getting quite a bit of use of. Now, with the cold, I have been adding a pair of earmuffs to this too, but it's one of many, many hats that I find useful for various reasons, and something you might want to look for yourself. It's also, I've also used it on camping trips for reading at night. So yeah, lots of uses. Saw it sitting out, wanted to share that with you. Second show and tell this evening. You know how sometimes you feel like a nut, maybe sometimes you feel like a buckeye, which are allegedly, supposedly lucky nuts. This is an Ohio buckeye. This, whoa, is a horse chestnut. They look similar size aside. This nut was actually from a few years ago. I have a dish of them. Of course I do, over in the dining room. This came from a parkway tree. This came from another tree that I walked by that's in an empty lot. The way we can tell it, I've struggled for years with looking at the leaves of Ohio buckeye and the leaves of horse chestnut. And some people, you know, they point differences out on the margins, the edges of the leaves, the number of the leaflets. These are trees that have compound leaflets, but something that has finally helped in telling the difference between these two is if you can find nuts that, now this is not a great time of year to do this. There are a few now that are covered over with snow, but this is the husk, and the nut is still inside. This is a horse chestnut. It actually kind of hurts to hold this because of the spines. You can sort of see them here. They're very prickly, they're very sharp. That's the hallmark of a horse chestnut. Ohio buckeye, I thought I had the husk here. I don't know if Kit, the furry roommate that eats everything, if she chewed on it. I honestly don't know where it is. I can't show it to you, but it has like little lumps, almost like smooth bumps, as opposed to these pointy and spiny and somewhat painful bumps on the horse chestnut. The buckeye, it's a much easier husk to hold. The nut itself, and I've heard this of horse chestnuts too. You know, I think it was my This was my dad's dad. Grandpa Erickson used to carry he called it his lucky chestnut in his pocket. It would get shiny from his rubbing it with his thumb. Um, People from Ohio say the same of buckeyes. Um, does anybody know the US president that had buckeyes featured in his campaign? General William Henry Harrison. I've been reading up a little bit on buckeyes for a talk that I'm going to be doing next month for the Illinois Association of Conservation Districts. This thing with lucky buckeyes, of course, it's big in Ohio. I don't know if we've got any Ohio State fans in the group tonight, but buckeyes are a big deal in Ohio. There was actually a casino several years ago that started touting the luck of the buckeyes, and they offered to give buckeyes away to people visiting their casino. They started off with 5,000 buckeyes. They actually they ran out, and they ended up buying tens of thousands more. I don't know what the promotion cost them, but there was actually a run on buckeyes. And then, of course, somebody out of all those tens of thousands of people that had a lucky buckeye actually won. I think they won $3,000 at the casino. So then everybody else wanted to have lucky buckeyes too. Thank you, Miss Laura. ILLINI. Yeah, I'm always going to be an Illini. But these are kind of cool, and they are kind of nice. I oftentimes will find myself gravitating towards them. Like I said, I've got a dish of horse chestnuts in the other room, and now I've got a sack of buckeyes too. Just a little bit of tree ID for when things thaw out a little bit. The city of St. Charles has planted several Ohio buckeyes as parkway trees, so the nut is not that hard to find. You don't have to go all the way to Ohio, and you don't have to become an Ohio State fan to have a few around. Let's see, was there something else? Oh, there's a video. So once again, we're going to go through our screen sharing exercise. This one's going to be a little bit different, but just to talk a little bit about our wild friends and what they've been up against these last few days. Now, they are adapted to the cold, but boy, I have to say I spent probably more time than I should as a naturalist, just being kind of concerned about our birds, our squirrels. But they started preparing for this weather long before we did. Changing diets, our mammals, our rodents like our squirrels have been caching foods for months to get ready for this. The birds keeping their feathers in top condition and having those different layers of feathers, the outer feathers that shed water and block wind to some degree, depending on how the wind is coming. And then also those insulating down feathers, they're all there to help these animals survive these pretty chilly conditions. I wanted to show you this was a video that was sent by one of our participants in our naturalist program, Jim and his partner, Nancy. All right, let's see. Now I'm going to go down to share the screen, and I'm going to optimize it, and then I'm going to pull up. Why don't I see it here? I'm just going to start with this one. All right, screen share is loading. All right, so now we're sharing a screen. With any luck at all, this video, let me move this bar out of the way. So this was a little video that Jim took in his backyard. He called it the splish-splash spa. So this is their hot tub cover, and this was some melted snow, and it shows. So even when the temperatures are somewhat warmer, birds are looking for water. Now, keep that in mind. I'm going to go to our slides for tonight. Let's move this back down here, and we're going to go to here. So this is the heated bird bath that's on my deck. And now this was through the window that isn't particularly clean, and I had zoomed in so that the shot isn't real precise. Maybe is this one any clearer? It's a little bit clearer. I don't know. Funny look on that robin's face there. But I tell you, on Sunday and Monday, there was not a time during the day that there were not robins and also starlings coming to that water. I don't know how many times I went out and first of all scrubbed it out and then filled it up. You can probably see the snow surrounding the bird bath there is not pristine. There's a lot going into these birds to keep that their metabolism fueled, to keep those inner fires going, and there's a lot coming out. From what I was able to tell, and this might be one of those not suitable for sensitive viewers pictures. This is what that area looked like. Like I said, I cleaned that bird bath out every few hours. It would be dry. It is heated. You can see the glowing plug down below. I have it plugged into the light fixture in back, but that water was just in such demand. Now I've always heard, that water is a limiting factor for birds in winter, and eating snow, it comes at a cost, because that cold snow going into their body's going to have to warm that up, which is going to cost them calories that they could otherwise use to keep themselves warm. But I've also heard the downside of offering water to birds. Let's move back. That's not such a great thing for you guys to be looking at. Let's go back to this one for a little bit. The downside to offering birds water is that if there's exposed metal nearby. So here I've got these wrought iron chairs here, and then there's a chain link fence that goes around the back of my yard, that birds, if they land on those metal surfaces with wet feet, they can get stuck. So I've seen pictures of what can happen. Birds have actually torn feet off, toes off, as they've flown away. I was watching, because birds would hop from the bird bath. They would mostly go onto the snow, but sometimes they would be sitting on these chairs, and nobody got stuck. There were also, I've got a, you can't see it in this picture, but over on this side of the deck, there is my grill. And it's got a lot of metal on it. Birds were sitting on it and not getting stuck, but it is something to be aware of. And I did periodically, I would look out in the yard just to see if there were any birds struggling. There is a lot, as the neighbors will tell you, there is a lot of grapevine covering a lot of the tops of the chain link, but something to bear in mind if you're offering water to birds. There is that potential downside to it, and something to be vigilant for when the temperatures are this cold. All right, let's bounce past that. So this, I just took these pictures this afternoon. I had to make a delivery over to St. Charles Public Works, and outside of their entrance area, there are a lot of crab apples. I think that these trees are really important to robins. When we met after New Year's a couple of weeks ago, I talked about how there's a street, 8th Street over here on the west side of St. Charles, that the city had planted with a lot of these crabapple trees, because they're lower growing, and they would sort of behave themselves beneath the power lines on that street. So there were robins there. New Year's Day, I walked past those trees, and the robins were actually singing from those trees. So this is outside of Public Works. There must have been, I don't know, between the robins that were in the trees and the robins that were on the ground, there had to be, I don't know, maybe 30 or so. And this was in the afternoon, the light was shifting. They were probably going to have to leave there pretty soon because they don't want to be out at night. I was looking around to try and figure out where they might be headed. These are birds, so in the daytime, they want to be near a food source, but at night, they want to be somewhere where they are, one, as protected as possible from the wind. And this is where trees, we talked a week or two ago about marcescence, which is the tendency for some trees to retain their leaves. Well, now those leaves have snow on them, and snow is a great insulator. So maybe a tree like that, or maybe there's evergreen trees. Evergreens are also wonderful refuges for birds overnight, because the snow that gathers on the needles also forms an insulating layer and protects them from some of the cold. It's still a little chilly out there. Very chilly out there. I think about them at night. Try not to dwell on it though. And here, this Miss Bonnie sent this picture this morning. This is a squirrel we mentioned. No, I think it was last fall, Bonnie, when you first told me about it. This is a fox squirrel. I mean, fox squirrels, there are larger of the two predominant tree squirrels we have in this other area. The gray squirrels tend to be about a pound or so. Fox squirrels average about 2 pounds. So in this case, that's that much more insulating fat that this squirrel enjoys. But this little squirrel, Bonnie has named Stumpy because Stumpy lost his or her tail. Tails for squirrels are pretty important. They help with balance as they're running amongst the tree limbs. They at this time of year are a blanket. Squirrels will use that tail. They'll wrap it over their head when they're out. It can also serve as an umbrella if there's precipitation coming down. But they also will curl up and use it as a blanket. Little Stumpy here does not have that option anymore, but seems to be doing just fine. Squirrels, they build those leafy nests in trees called drays, or they will move into a tree cavity, and they will pack that with leaves too. Leaves, just like we were talking about with snow being an insulating layer, the air pockets in between the snowflakes act as insulation. Well, a well-constructed squirrel's nest is going to be very well insulated too, protecting against all of the elements. I read a study a while back about squirrel nests in oh gosh, it was someplace really cold like Siberia. It's one of the very far northern latitudes. And the squirrels, the scientists put temperature probes into these squirrels' nests, and they found that once the squirrel came, inside the nest and let its body heat warm the interior, the nest was a toasty, like 60, 70, 80 degrees, which is really remarkable considering the outside temperature there is into the negative digits. But they can warm up, and so hopefully little Stumpy here has a nice warm nest to go back to. Bonnie's doing a good job of keeping Stumpy fueled with some corn. Sounded like from Bonnie's text that Stumpy stayed for quite a while filling up on that easy meal there. Hopefully Stumpy's got some other snacks stashed different places too, so that he or she enjoys a nice balanced diet over the course of this cold stretch. Now this picture, this actually goes back let's see, it would have been a week ago. Boy, seems like a lot longer ago than that. It was actually a very comfortable day. I was walking through one of the few remaining cornfields here in the city, within the city limits of St. Charles. This is that field that you can see, local folks. It's at the corner of 14th Street and Route 38. And I was cutting through that on my way to a program, and I was struck by how straight this line of tracks is here. I'm gonna guess from the length of the stride between these tracks that this was a coyote that was going for a stroll through the cornfield. That's a hallmark of our wild dogs, wild canines tracks. I was looking and I wasn't able to find a good example, although I probably just go out my backyard and take a picture of domestic dog, pet dogs. They don't have the energy conservation needs that our wild dog neighbors have. So there's a real conservation of motion here in this animal. Look at how straight that track is. It goes all the way. I think it did jump over somewhere down the line and went to another row, but probably was on its way from point A to point B, but took the cornfield shortcut is maybe a means of looking for snacks too. I would imagine this time of year, if there's some spilled corn underneath that snow, that there might be some rodents hanging out in there too. Lots of stories to be found in the snow. Let's see if we can get this to move on here. There we go. This was another wild canine. I thought I did a better job of showing the straightness of this track, but I guess I didn't. It was a little chillier on this particular morning, but the dog tracks, this was going along Prairie on the west side of St. Charles, and this animal was headed in this particular direction, and all the human footprints were heading in the other direction. But yeah, it was a nice straight line of footprints going down between, I think this was between 5th Street and 4th Street along Prairie. So somebody had been out, I'm not an early riser. This was probably, I don't know, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and this animal had been out much earlier on its appointed or unappointed rounds. And this, so this, I so wanted to show this. One of the best times to look for wildlife in your neighborhood, get an idea of who all's around, is to go out on garbage night. Even though like our trash haulers have switched to these covered bins, for the most part, people use these curbside tours. I still see the occasion. In fact, I use a bag usually when I set stuff out, because I try not to have anything attractive in it. I try not to put any organic waste out. But the smells that used to draw animals in are still out there. They're not as accessible as they used to be because of these toters. But what this picture was supposed to be was showing the ginormous raccoon that was right about here when I was walking home. Again, you can tell by this picture, this was before the big snow and before the extreme cold. This would have been, I guess, a week ago. And by the time I got my phone out of my pocket, by the time I got my glove off, the raccoon had scampered somewhere over here. This house has some big, thick yews as part of their landscaping, and the raccoon disappeared in amongst those shrubs over there. But it reminded me, I'm gonna wait till it gets a little warmer out again, but I want to get those night vision binoculars that I showed you a couple weeks ago. I want to get those out on garbage night just to see if I can get some footage for you of the creatures, the raccoons, the opossums. As we get into February, and they said already next week things are going to warm up again, although I don't know for how long. But as we get through January and into February, we are approaching mating season for raccoons, for opossums, also for skunks and foxes and coyotes. Who am I missing? Squirrels. It is the month of love. It's getting ready so that they can most of them have, say, a 6-week, 2-month gestation period. So they're going to have those youngsters being born as supposedly as our temperatures will be warming up when we get into March and April. So something else we'll have the kind of the dual effect of mating season and garbage night coming up, just, in case you want to go out and check it out yourselves. So here's I can't resist these things. Here's another hornet's nest. This one is in a parkway tree. I believe this was on 6th Street. And it's been torn open too. This one is from the bottom. So I'm gonna guess it was birds that did this. But we can see here's all the cells that held the pupa of the hornets, which are actually just a type of paper wasp. But if we zoom in here, we can see a lot of them have been torn open. And that's free protein. Now this picture too, this dated to before the extreme cold, but I wonder how many more nests have been torn open since we've been in this cold spell, because protein like that, insect protein, there's some animals like some birds like chickadees. We see chickadees at our feeders, but when you think about a chickadee eating seeds, the best energy for your buck as far as bird seed goes is the black oil sunflower seed. But a chickadee, they have a seed eating bill, but it's not the sort of bill that will just crush the seed out. They have to take it, they have to go to the bird feeder, get the seed, fly away, go to a branch or a post somewhere where they can whack, 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 open that seed, get the kernel out that's inside, and then go back and get another seed. So there's expending a lot of energy. It's worth it. I mean, there's a lot of good fat as well as protein in those sunflower seeds. But with the insect larvae, they're softer. I mean, they might be a little frozen, but they're not as much effort. Once that nest has been torn open, the payoff is pretty high. There's not as much energy being expended, yet there's a good return for their efforts. So maybe you want to take a little survey of nests in your area just to see if they have been exploited yet, or if they've been torn open like this. And even better, see if you can catch somebody in the act. See if it's a chickadee, type of woodpecker. Red bellies love these, but so do downies. Those are probably the two most common in this area. And then there's also squirrels. If the nest is positioned in such a way that they can get to it, squirrels will help themselves to those treats as well. So I apologize, folks, this is not a good picture, but it just sort of occurred to me. I pulled the van over, could not get the window to go down, and there was a little traffic. I didn't want to get out of the van. But this is our Fox River. That's the Illinois Bridge right over here. The river's flowing this way. Look at it's open. And there's vapor coming off of it, but it's not frozen. And this is where we see a lot of waterfowl. If you live in the area, you know there's a lot of controversy now about the dams on the Fox River. Should they come out? Should they stay? The Army Corps of Engineers has just last fall they released a series, a report that has where they've looked at the impacts of the dams on water quality in the area, and the recommendation is for the dams to come out. There's been a lot of pushback. The area, I remember talking to somebody, oh gosh, over 10 years ago about the stretch of river north of the St. Charles Dam and how there was a good case for leaving that one, even though ecologically it's not helping at all, but economically with the boat launch at Boy Scout Island and the paddle wheel river boats at Potawatomi, all of the what do you call them, the crew teams that were practicing there. There's a lot of traffic there, and having that impoundment created by the dam was well used by all of those people. Well, and that's still true. All those things are still going on. But I was at Potawatomi today, failed to take a picture of the frozen impoundment. As you go north or upstream from the St. Charles Dam and all the other dams too, that impoundment it's kind of like a backwater. It's more lake-like. It's a little stiller because that dam is impeding the flow. So it's all frozen. The reason I bring this up and the reason why I snapped this picture, a lot of the people who are in favor of keeping the dam are saying that wildlife benefits from that impoundment. They say that the eagles need that water to fish in. But I was thinking today, look at in what the Army Corps folks have said is that if the dam should come out, the Fox River north of where the dam is now would look very much like it does through this stretch here. So this is between Illinois, and then Prairie Street is over here. And so it's a little bit narrower than it is north of the impoundment, or but of the impound where the impoundment is. But the fact that it's open now, this is a huge benefit, as we saw in our earlier slides. You know, the birds need water, wildlife needs water. And if it's all frozen, as it is in the impoundment, it's not accessible. I'd say the one benefit might be to animals like coyotes. I know I should have stuck one in to tonight's slides, and I didn't. In years past, when the water by Potawatomi is frozen, I've taken several pictures of coyote tracks. It does become a thoroughfare for animals that are on foot that would otherwise have to use a bridge or swim to get across. They can save a lot of steps by walking on the ice. So there is that benefit. But in terms of open and fresh water, this just seemed to be so much more useful than the frozen water north of the dam. It's hard to see. There were some ducks down here. The geese, I think, had all flown off. Most of the time, the geese will leave this area during the day. They'll go out west of here to the cornfields. And in fact, there's a lot that go to the soccer fields too. With the snow, that kind of changes things. When the grass is covered up, they a lot of times head for cornfields and things like that. But the geese then do come back. Sometimes there are geese, actually, a lot of times there are geese right above the impoundment. There is an area that doesn't usually freeze, and they'll hang out there. But my point, and I do have one, is that this open water is huge, big benefit to wildlife, and it's below the dam. It's what would be there should the dam come out. I guess this was another lousy picture. All the open water here. This is looking from the Illinois Street Bridge, looking south. All right, from here. So this was a picture, or I was going to show this when Jerry sent it a couple weeks ago. And she called it Laura's Baby Blues because you could see those blue eyes there. This is deer tracks. And this is along this is the Lake Michigan shore over on the Michigan side. So Laura, you and Jerry go over there pretty often. And these are some deer tracks, nicely showing the two-toed configuration of the deer's feet. I've been emailing with Jerry a little bit this week, and we had mentioned briefly the topic of trash on that eastern shore of Lake Michigan. And she said, besides your remarkable baby blue eyes, your foot is right next to what looks like maybe a bottle cap or something. And then she said there were some other photos taken that day of the trash. So, you know, prevailing winds go from west to east. So a lot of things float that way. A lot of things are carried that way by wave action. Here we've got a Snapple bottle. She said there were a lot of plastic cigarette butts. This was the one that really got me. These are balloons. So balloons, there was just a balloon release here. I think we talked about it in memory of a young man who had died. I get it that the image of, you know, balloons going skyward is, you know, they're bound for heaven where your loved ones are. Whatever. I'm going to move this out of the way because there's a balloon down here too to take a look at. But there is a lot of in fact, one group called Balloons Blow. They are they used to be based in Florida. I'm not sure if that's where they still are, or if they're if they've moved somewhere up on the East Coast. But they have a mission of trying to stop these mass balloon releases. There were some colleges who would start football season by releasing scores of balloons, tens of thousands of balloons. But it's one thing to release the balloons. That's bad enough. But then when they still have the strings attached to them, that's another thing. Jerry had said in her email that sometimes the ribbons are so far, you know, underneath, buried in the sand, that you can hardly pull them up. They're just really, really hard to deal with, and it does present a hazard for wildlife. Something else that Jerry mentioned that she didn't take a picture of, but something I have noticed too, and I bet you have, or if you haven't, you will now. When we talk about human trash, are those little floss picks? You know what I'm talking about? They're, you know, maybe, I don't know, four inches long or so, and they've got just a little piece of dental floss on the end. I don't, people, there must be a lot of people with really clean teeth for the number of times I've seen those picks. Now, I have to say that I have not picked them up. I've picked up quite a bit of trash, but there's just something about somebody's dental floss that gives me the heebie-jeebies, and maybe I just need to be better about wearing gloves. But I see them all the time in different places where I park the van in downtown St. Charles, places I walk throughout the area. I see these things all the time. There's some, I guess, you know, there's some people that are really concerned about their hygiene, but it's sort of what would you call it? Not an oxymoron, but a dichotomy. You know, they're keeping their teeth clean, but then they're being slobs and they're throwing their flossing thingy on the ground. doesn't make any sense. And those things are made out of hard plastic, so they're pretty resistant to breaking down. In fact, dental floss itself, I've got a Baltimore Oriole nest that has dental floss in it. Um, so yeah, floss, especially like, um, is it called Reach? Is that the one? I don't think I've got the name right, but it's
There is Reach as a brand.
is that the one that's the real slick one?
I think so. What
Yeah,
I don't get is, are these people walking and flossing, driving and flossing? I can't walk and what is, how is this happening?
I wondered the same thing, Laura, and
It's actually Jerry, but
are
we sound the
you
same.
kidding me? You guys did it again.
Sorry.
Are
Sorry,
you both
Pam.
on tonight?
We are.
I cannot tell you guys apart.
We're turning into the same person, I'm afraid.
Okay, Jerry, go ahead, please. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I share your same thoughts. I don't see anybody ever actively flossing. Um,
Right?
you know, I used to be married to a dentist, and it was his fervent wish that everybody would floss. He said, most of his patients, that was the standard 6-month lecture was, well, everything's okay, but you really need to start flossing. I
Floss in your bathroom, then, for God's sake.
yeah, do it right. Yeah, when you brush, because they're not brushing, right? They don't brushing their teeth as,
It's just gross.
but yeah, it's something I don't get it, but boy, I see them in parking lots. I see them on streets. I see them on sidewalks. And then you see them on the beach.
Yeah, my husband didn't believe me because I'm like, they're everywhere. He's like, I don't see them. So I walked 15 minutes from my house to this neighborhood where there's lots of restaurants and things like this called Lincoln Square. And I
Uh-huh.
saw four on the way. And, I'm in an urban setting, so whatever. But I sent a picture of each of them to him just to, just to
Told
prove
you
my
so.
point.
Told you so. Told you so.
Exactly. I'm not above that, Pam.
Yeah. And then I thought, well, are there, I don't think there are any restaurants. I mean, I could see, if we had like, corn on the cob stand, or, there's some foods where you just really want to floss when you're done. But I don't think there's any restaurants that are handing out flossing gadgets. I say it's the plastic, I thought, maybe there's a source for them that I'm not aware of, but anyway, it's gross. It's something that I wish we could come up with a solution for. Um, now that you've seen it, now that we've talked about it, now you'll start seeing them too. um,
I just wanted to bring up the whole balloon launch thing. And so, in my extended family, one of my husband's cousins lost her son when he was just in his 20s. So, we used to do a balloon launch at Thanksgiving
mhm,
because that's when everyone gets together. So, it's like 20 balloons going up in the air. And finally,
mhm.
it was actually my sister in law was like, this is not a good idea. And then I agreed. Um, so it took a couple of years to change minds, and now we just light lanterns
Oh,
instead. And we don't, they're not the ones that you send off, but it's a bunch of lit lanterns, usually in a heart shape, and we light them. And
oh.
somebody gives a talk or whatever, and it's beautiful, and it's not as detrimental to
And
the
then you just
environment
take
as
the lanterns. Are they like,
they're just paper that I'm not the one who buys them, but they're just paper lanterns that sit on the ground. And
oh, okay.
yeah, and it's nice. And it doesn't, I hate those ribbons. They're just every time you go to the beach.
Well, and I had written about these balloons a few years ago, and even the balloon people were saying, well, we would never tie ribbons, on balloons that we're going to launch, because that's just, that's, uh, you know, sidestepping the fact that the balloons are also litter, but, pointing the finger at the places that tied ribbons on them as being, the really bad litter. But, they supposedly these balloons break down. And just like we talked about last week with the landscaping mesh, yes, it will degrade over time, but the timeline is so long that there's a lot of things that can happen in the meantime. A lot of animals can be affected by it. And plus it's ugly to look at once it's come back down to earth. It's not something we need to be subjected to. Jerry, you did send some other pictures as well. And I chose this one because quick glance, you think it's one thing, but then you look again and you see it's something else. This is a wonderful example of wood ear fungus. It's a jelly fungus. I think we've talked about this before. This looked like it was very well hydrated. This is a fungus that can persist for, oh gosh, I don't know, a long time on wood as it's helping to break it down. And it can shrink down to nothing. If this branch is laying exposed and we go through a period of dryness, the fungus will shrink down and it'll look just like a little black spots on the branch. And then as it becomes wet again, whether it rains or there's heavy dew, then it pops back up again, and it really does kind of wiggle like jelly. Supposedly it's edible as well, but I thought this was a pretty cool picture and a nice way to end. So because I could see when I was loading the slides, I thought, oh boy, if I just keep talking about trash, we're going to end on a bad note like we did last week. So this is a nice, happy little thing to focus on here. The wood ear fungus, which right now are covered with snow, but as we get into next week, they're predicting temperatures back in the 30s. You might want to head out and see if you can find some wood ears of your own. All right, let's stop with the screen share. It looks like we've got some comments here to get to. And I know we had Laura's Illini remark. Yes, peanut butter. So we used to have a supervisor or assistant superintendent actually of recreation at the park district who would make those buckeyes. I think it's a peanut butter ball and then you dip it in chocolate so it looks like this part would be the peanut butter and then this part was the dark chocolate. Yeah, 2 thumbs up. So maybe there are a couple of redeeming qualities for Ohio State Buckeyes. And Jerry says everyone keeps their covered bins in the alleys here in Chicago. Critters have no. Yeah, people that don't keep their bins indoors are. I've seen that. Where was I? Well, actually, you know what? We see it. So our park district garbage cans, a lot of them have a lid with a spring hinged door. And it's supposed to be too tough for the animals to push in. But it's not. The plastic, although it's very hard, it's not too tough for them to chew on. So I've seen that there too.
Whose teeth would be strong enough to do that? Would that be raccoons or rats or either one?
I'm thinking the rodents. I think
Hard.
squirrels.
Oh,
Squirrels
squirrels, yeah.
they've got the strong jaw and they've got the sharp self-sharpening incisors that they can gnaw, and the holes are usually they start off about like that. Now, I have seen raccoons that have been able to muscle those tops off. Depending on if it's next to like a picnic table or something. So they're not impenetrable. Although there is down at Red Oak in North Aurora, they got some really nice heavy steel trash cans, but they have the bear-proof lids on them, which you don't usually see in Chicagoland. The bear-proof, people out west know how to work a bear-proof trash. I actually would pick up trash when I was walking the trails at Red Oak, and I'd end up carrying it with me until I could find a garbage can I knew how to open. But I finally figured it out. There's a handle, and the handle is underneath a cover, and you have to reach up underneath and push. There's like a lever underneath that you push up, and then the lid can raise up. I don't think anything's been able to break into those. Certainly not our little bear cub size raccoons that we have. Yes, using up helium. I'm sorry, go ahead. Is it somebody? No. Wallace mentioned that, yeah, helium, and there's helium has gone up a lot in price. I was thinking about this too. I was watching, it was a movie clip from decades ago, and there were kids at a circus, and they all had balloons, but the balloons were tied on a stick. Remember that? It's you don't ever see that anymore. And I was actually then thinking, well, that's how sustainable is that? Because those sticks that's using using wood that maybe could be used for something else. And then I thought, well, maybe they could use bamboo, because bamboo is supposed to be very sustainable. Would that be a suitable substitute? I don't know, but you're right. Well, it's in those helium. We used to, when we were doing more in the way of rentals at Hickory Knolls, a lot of times people would have, though, they would buy a little helium tank, and then they'd stick it with us when they left, and they said, oh, the nature people know what to do with it. There's not a big market for those tanks either. We had a hard time trying to figure out what to do with those. Okay, so it's, yeah, helium, balloons, whole thing, bad news. Meredith, you see the floss things all over, and yeah, I don't know. And again, from a dentist's perspective, flossing is something that is not that popular, that a lot of people do not floss. It's one of the reasons that we've got a lot of issues with gum disease, but you would think we had the cleanest teeth in the world by the number of floss things laying around on the sidewalks. Some people in places in Asia let paper lanterns rise from the heat from a tiny candle. I don't know if that's better or worse. I've heard about that too, and I've heard there were a couple of downsides to that, because sometimes they would rise up and then they would land on something flammable, like a rooftop or pile of leaves or something. And then I believe there's some metal that's attached with that paper, and that was causing some trash issues as well. Beautiful, look to it. And as you mentioned, Jerry, putting lanterns, but it might be better to have them like you do on the ground, as opposed to letting them fly off to, who knows where. That's the issue, is once they're up in the air, they could go anywhere. And Chris, like you said, drones instead of fireworks. That's I kind of think we're gonna start seeing more of that. That's going to become more acceptable over time, once people get used to the idea that fireworks, you don't have to have the big boom. You can watch a show in the sky that doesn't make as much noise, doesn't scare people, doesn't scare dogs. That might be, yeah, something that we can look forward to in the future. All right, folks, that's pretty much what I had tonight. I've got, I don't know, my roommate number one over here, Kit, is snoring. I don't know if the mic is picking that up. And for roommate number two is kind of leaning against me. I think he's got to go out. So if that's what we have for tonight, very much appreciate your time. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for keeping yourselves safe and warm. We will be back again next week for another hour of Good Nature. Hope to see you then.
Thank you very much, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you, Pam. That was Laura.
Can't tell.